Hey everyone. Someone tell me what day this is. 22? Look at this. This isn't even an effect. This is like real sun rays. See? Boop, boop, boop. Sun right there. I'll move it away and maybe take off my glasses so you can see me. But I thought that was so cool. I wanted to share that. I just parked in the perfect spot for the rays to come through. Having way too much fun over here. So I'll move the camera so you can see me better without the sun blasting your eyes. I believe it's day 22. I'm not really sure anymore, and it doesn't really even matter, because if you're not doing the 90 days in order with me, you can do them in whatever order you want. The message is still the same. Yesterday we talked about difficult conversations and taking those core values into those difficult conversations for maintaining our vulnerability and safety inside our vulnerabilities. Really, it's not about maintaining your vulnerabilities, because we eventually want to outgrow these things. We want to evolve past these things making us feel unsafe. Or taking risky moments and being comfortable inside them. So we talked about those core values in those difficult conversations, and ensuring that we're bringing core values to those conversations so that we're focused on what we need to be focused on in the conversation to fulfill our needs, and also to hear, what's going on the other side of whoever else we're talking with. Today I want to talk about that other party and tie that into this sense of belonging. I think for me, I'm going to dive a little bit into my story, which I'm sure maybe you could write yourself by now. You may have heard some of it. This sense of belonging has been one of my core issues. And honestly, it goes much further back than I think I was really willing to admit until I started to really dive into life. Growing up, in high school. I think in younger years, I had a pretty decent core group of friends. And I don't mean decent, they're all beautiful people, but I like decent meaning I fit and it was a good connection. And then, like you do, when you grow up, when you age, when you go through puberty, when you go through high school, when you go through all your emotional and physical changes, and you kind of discover the path that you're going to go. Some of us, went different directions, and some of us stayed friends. Some of us are still friends today, though not very close, because there's about 2,000 miles between us in physical distance. And that honestly was always my plan, because I was born in Colorado, from Colorado, and then taken at a young age. I wasn't taken. I moved at a young age with my parents to the East Coast, and spent most of my childhood on the East Coast, and said for years that I would get back to Colorado. And I did. In my 20s, I got back to Colorado and spent another 20 years there. So do the math, I just aged myself. Anyway, in this small town on the East Coast in Virginia, I was always a come here. It's interesting, because when you dive into my family in this town, my family helped build the town. Not my family, but my ancestors helped to build and develop this town, and their names are all over it. And it didn't matter for my immediate family, because we were all come heres. And so I didn't belong, and I didn't feel like I belonged. And as I got older, it was more and more noticeable. And then, of course, as I aged into discovering myself and who I am, it was even more noticeable for me, because I was a lesbian. And I knew three. Well, two in my town, and then a third one who came to town to work and lived elsewhere. But yeah, I think I knew 5 gay people total, which is actually a lot for that little town. And it's funny, because now I know even more who I went to school with. And of course, none of us knew when we were in school. And goodness, had we grown up in today's world, we would have the band of us together would have started a GSA club or something like that. We would have at least had our tribe, but I didn't belong. And then years later, most of my friends were work friends, and so you kind of belong at work, but do you belong at the clubs or dinners or parties after work? I don't know. I never felt like I had that sense of belonging. And I've talked about the moms groups. I'm a mom. I have 3 kids. They're all teenagers at this point. Well, my son will be very soon. So those early years of motherhood, it took me years before I joined a mom's group. And I did it because my oldest daughter, needed friends. And I was like, she needs friends, and it would be really good for me to make friends as well and not just hang out with my neighbor across the street, because she also had kids. And it was just convenient. And I didn't fit into that group either. I didn't fit into the group of moms at school. I just never felt that sense of belonging. And don't get me wrong, I have dear friends, but I have this good friend here who doesn't know this good friend here, who also doesn't know this good friend over here. And every now and then I would bring them all together for coffee or girls' night or whatever, and they got to know one another. But as I've not really had much of a tribe in my lifetime. I've been very, nomadic and going from group to group and fitting in other people's groups. And it's my comfort zone. It's where I'm the most comfortable, because I'm not a loner. I'm not a gypsy. I don't really isolate. I'm not really an introvert. But I don't know. I've never had that sense of belonging. So, flash forward to my most recent trauma in the last year. I lost my daughter and my partner on the same day, and 10 days or whatever before that, we all lost our dog, my dog, who was 10 years old, who I picked out as a puppy, before he was 4 weeks old, and brought him home before he was 8 weeks old, and he was my guy. And my whole world just kind of came crashing down at once. And it was, this is hard. It was a couple of months into isolating by myself in my home and just going through the day-to-day motions with my other 2 children, and trying to heal and trying to navigate and trying to figure out what's next, before I realized I don't belong. Everything I had built with my partner, and that included all of our friends. And so all of our friends were mutual friends. And it took me months before I finally reached out publicly and said, look, don't take sides. There's no sides to take here. So don't feel like you have to choose. And now, almost a year later, I still feel like I don't belong, because I asked everyone not to choose, and very few have made a choice. In those months of trauma, I realized that my tribe, the people I lean on most, are 900 miles away, and 2,000 miles away, and 2,300 miles away. And I talk to those 3 people every day, sometimes multiple times a day. They were the people I leaned on, but nobody was in my space for me locally. Let me rephrase that in case some of these people watch. It's not that nobody was there, it's that I didn't let anybody in. And there were definitely times I would go to my neighbor, or I'd go to a particular friend, or I'd go to a couple that I know I'm very close. I would, they're definitely here. The couple, especially, and my neighbor, were especially there in my darkest moments, because they would just drop what they were doing and open the door for me. Even if they couldn't sit and talk, they would just let me in. So what does it take to belong? What does it take to have that sense of belonging? And let me say that where I am now, I definitely have friends, because I started this healing process, and then it took me a good 6 months before I said to myself, you need to get out there and you need to make new friends. Because I couldn't put my mutual friends in a position where I was crying on their couch constantly, or I was telling my story that would make my ex-partner look bad. I didn't want to hinder anyone's thoughts and opinions of her based on my pain. And so I went out and I created new friends. And I would say now I have a fantastic, strong tribe of people who are local. And I've also, in these several months, in this last year, lost friends. And it's hard. It's hard to know that I've lost people because maybe they did make a choice. And that choice solidified that I didn't belong. So, here's where I'm going with this. I give you my backstory so that you've got some foundation that maybe you can relate to in your life. You're welcome to share your stories as well. My life is very public, so I don't mind sharing this stuff. And I don't do it as a journaling mechanism. I do it to create some kind of foundation, and maybe in your world you can pull something out that resonates with where you are or where you've been, and get past where you might be stuck. And that's what I've told my therapist, is I'm stuck right here. I'm stuck in this space, and this is one of those spaces where I'm stuck. That sense of belonging. It's important. And goodness, if 2020 taught us anything, it's that we need people, right? We need community. We need connection. We need physical touch. How many people went through, a year, 16 months, 18 months without actually physically touching anyone? Maybe after a few months they got to a space where they could have conversations from their car to the next car, just to see face to face with masks on and, whatever, but no touch, because, we were terrified that this virus would kill us, or insert whatever emotion and whatever feelings we felt then, because this isn't going to get into virus and politics. So I'm still stuck here in this sense of belonging, but here's what I've discovered in my research of belonging and living inside the vulnerable. And this is really one of the big reasons why this particular brand of mine is called Living Inside the Vulnerable. My first mistake was not reaching out to this core group of people that I thought would at least, if not have my back, reach out to me and say, is there anything I can do? I don't want to talk about it, I don't want to hear about it, but I can sit with you while you cry. So I talked earlier about expectations. I think in the letting go week, I talked about expectations. And so my expectations were, this is extreme. These were not really my expectations, but maybe without admitting it, my expectations may have been, people should have been knocking on my door, my phone should have been ringing, and I should have gotten text messages, people should have been reaching out over Messenger. And I got very little of that. I did get some of it, but I got very little of that I thought no one cared. And if no one cares and they don't notice that you're not there, then you don't belong, right? Well, flip that around. Here's me being my worst advocate. What if they're thinking the same thing? What if they're thinking, this is a really difficult moment, in her life. This is a difficult season, and she's not reaching out, so she doesn't need us. We're not part of that inner circle. So she must be doing okay. So when we give grace to ourselves and we offer that same grace to others, it's easier to realize that maybe we do belong where we want to belong, but we have to also make our way there. I was talking to my daughter the other day, and I asked her, do you want to see change in your life? And she said, yeah. And I said, okay. How do you think that's going to happen? Do you think somebody's just going to wave this magic wand? Is somebody going to come into your life and say, here's change? Hand you a box of supplies? Not even supplies, because she has tools. Hand you a box that says change. Here it is, open it up, there's your change. Now you start living in this new life, in this new world called change. If we want to belong, we need to be okay being vulnerable with those groups of people where we want to belong. In my story, when was I vulnerable? I was vulnerable alone on my couch crying for months on end. But were my expectations that somebody would just walk in my door and hand me a box of tissues and sit with me? If I was really living inside the vulnerable and sharing my shame and my guilt and my pain with others and allowing them to sit with me without being a burden, would I have felt that sense of belonging? And so now I do belong. I'm still working on some things with a core group of people that I allowed to let go of me. But I do belong because I allow myself time to heal, grace while I'm healing, space to live, and a group of fabulous people who can love me exactly where I am. Here's why. Here's the caveat. Because I let them know exactly where I am. So I let them know, you know what? I need to have a difficult conversation. I gotta get some stuff out. I need your opinion. I need your advice. I need to get this off my chest. Will you be my shoulder? Or, I don't want to talk about it. Let's just go have fun. Because that's what I need. I need to let loose. I don't want to think about it. And sometimes it's a mix of both. But living inside the vulnerable means living our truth all the time. And so for me, that sense of belonging comes from me. It doesn't come from a group widening their circle to make space for me, because I've stood in those larger circles where somebody stepped aside and said, come on, Stell, come on in. You can belong here. I've stood in that circle and still felt like I didn't belong. Does that resonate with you at all? Have you stood in a circle of friends and still felt like you don't belong there? Have you been at a party and felt like a wallflower without actually being a wallflower? Have you been in a place where you thought, I could leave and nobody would notice? Nobody knows I'm here. Nobody cares. You turn it around. That's what I had to do. I had to turn it around and I had to take control. I can stand in a circle with you and still not belong. It's on me. It's my responsibility to make myself belong. Now, of course, I'm not talking about circles of people who make you uncomfortable. Obviously, you wouldn't stand in a circle of people who despise you, who gossip about you, who don't like you, who don't carry the same values. You know, I mean, there are definitely reasons why you might not belong in a place. But if we feel like we should, and these people kind of align with our values and align in our lives, and we still feel like we don't belong, whose responsibility is that? It's ours. It's ours. And I'm not talking about the way people treat us. So that's different. So here's a challenge. Step outside of your comfort zone and step into this space of living inside the vulnerable, living authentically, and let at least a few people in your world know exactly where you are, and feel how that level of belonging, that sense of belonging changes. Does it grow? Do you feel connected with these people? Or do you feel like, oh crap, I just gave them a bunch of shit to gossip about me with? If that's the case, then you probably need a different circle of people. But if that's not the case, and you feel a bigger, stronger human connection, then you did the right thing. It might not mean you're going to be best friends. This might not be your tribe. But step in and be a little vulnerable. Get real. Be authentic. Let them know where you are. Hey, guys, it was really hard for me to come over here, so I hope you don't mind. Can I join you? It was really hard for me to come over here. Now I'm here. Will you embrace my presence? I bet you if you start that way, you'll get all kinds of questions. Or you'll just get all kinds of information and you can build from there. Okay, this is a really long video. I have an appointment. Let's see where that sun is. Is that sun still here? Nope, sun's already gone. See? We caught it at just the right time. That was pretty cool. It was really amazing. Keep living in this space of vulnerability. Your vulnerabilities will change based on situations, based on where you are, based on your growth, based on your self-love and your grace and all that good stuff. And you know, if something here resonates with you, don't hesitate to share your story below with me. I'd love to hear what other people are going through and how they're healing and how we're all growing together. So take care. Make it a beautiful day. Peace out, guys.